here, that journey, member on a project, and you want to understand the elements, the fundamental principles, the life cycle, say, of a project. Many of you may be involved in home projects or on the job, as I touched upon earlier. And then lastly, those that want to learn more from an educational standpoint in that journey to help prepare you to apply and subsequently take and pass the certification exam. So my objective to each and every one of you to deliver that greatest value possible here, I'm going to share some practical considerations on scope, planning, work breakdown structure, and I have a nice case study on metrics. I'm going to utilize a lot of the Project Management Institute criteria, and I'm going to share some of my personal experience, some hopeful tips and tricks to help you. I'm going to deliver in a simple, easy-to-follow manner that could augment a lot of your previous or current training in education and project management. So let's collaborate, let's have some fun, let's learn together, and hopefully I could get each and every one of us to think how we could be better as a project manager going forward. As Karina said about the metrics case study, and then I'll kind of wrap up for those of you that are at that inflection point in your career where maybe you're ready for a change and you're interested, say, in this thing called project management as a profession. I'll share some things about that. And then, as Karina said, we'll wrap up by summarizing. I'll try to address any further questions that each of you may have, and then we'll have time to fill out the survey. At the first hour or so, we'll take a short break, and we'll do the same at around the second hour of today's course. So, team, that's the lineup for today. I also like, he's a well-known global person. He's someone that I happened to study years ago to help me prepare and take the examination. And I also have what's called the all-in-one exam prep kit from a gentleman by the name of Darren Clark. So these are just some of the references that you could consider in a day in a life, not only of, say, doing project management on the job, but also some additional education that could augment your current training schedule. These are just some terminologies I put here as a nice simple reference. We'll talk about many of these today, but again, for acronyms and things like that, I have some of them up front here for you. All right, I talked about many students like yourself over the last 2.5, 3 years that I've been doing this thing called the pandemic, this global pandemic really got many people to think about at that inflection point in their career to say, you know, I'm ready for a change. Hey, Sam, what would you consider me to do if I wanted to, say, become a project manager? So I have a couple of links here to give you at least a flavor to understand not only the role, but to understand yourself. What are your strengths? Where do you need some gap filled, if you will, in terms of the role of a project manager? And then some suggestions in terms of maybe putting together a plan that if this is something you really want to consider, create an education plan, start becoming more involved in a project, things to that nature. And then this is a nice summary, team, of just some of the key skills of a project manager. And I'm sure many of you utilize these in your current day in a life job, but these are some of the more important ones that that for successful project managers, these are things that you would need to consider and making sure that you could improve upon these in the role. Okay, so here, team, many of you may be aware, if you look at the global governance of project management, according to the Project Management Institute, there are 5 phases. And today we're going to talk about each of those phases. In addition, there's 10 knowledge areas. And today we're going to talk about scope. But in addition to those, I'm going to have that tutorial on work breakdown structure along with a case study on metrics. When you look at, team, the life cycle of a project, this is a nice at a glance where a project by its definition has a defined start and a defined end date. And along that life cycle journey, there's these different phases, different activities that need to take place to eventually achieve that desired outcome of the project. Starting with the initiation, going to planning, then the execution, and what I like to call the eye in the sky, the monitoring, the performance to make sure you're on track as expected, doing the right things to eventually have the closeout phase to achieve that desired outcome of the project. Another way of showing this is achieving business value. And the reason I emphasize this, team, is traditionally what defined a successful project. Was it done on time? Was it done within a budget? And was it done to the quality and satisfaction of the stakeholders that you were serving? What I want everybody to think about now more than ever is business value. Value achieved, value realized, return on investment, as an example. Okay, so project benefits don't just happen. Okay, a project plan obviously is required, among other things. And this is just a nice way to say you have your traditional 5 phases, but it's a iterative process, especially in the upfront planning. And you'll see shortly the 80-20 rule of 80% planning, preparing, practicing, and then the 20% executing the plan. So I just wanted to share this with you, team. And another way of looking at value is to make sure you as a project manager, you raise your game, you raise your conversation, almost like being a consultant, understanding your client's strategy. What are their overall strategic goals? So as a project manager, you want to make sure your skills to support a value-like life cycle are in place, okay? And you want to stay focused on why are we here? To deliver the project benefits beyond on time, within budget, and quality. So team, I wanted to share that with you. So now let's look at the elements, team, that comprise project scope. I put this together as a nice high level at a glance. And if you were looking at the project scope management process, on the top left, it really begins, say, with a project charter, stakeholder register as an example, and I'll show you some nice templates shortly. And then that feeds into high-level requirements. What constraints, what risks, things to that nature. What do we have to deliver and when in that life cycle? And then eventually it breaks down even further into more details. And we'll touch upon these shortly as it relates to scope. And then the results level. Okay, the requirements document and those major deliverables, were they delivered on time as expected, things of that nature. So this is a nice high level at a glance of the overall scope management process. This is an example, team, I wanted to share with you of a project charter. Again, it's one of the first triggers of initiating a project. High level, what is a project name? When do we plan to start? When do we plan to end? Where is it targeted? Where is its scope? What risks do we know, at least up front, at that time? And then some key milestones and project names, approval, things to that nature. Again, high level. And in addition, we work for these people called stakeholders, sponsors, okay? And human nature says each stakeholder has different wants and needs. So this is a nice template, team, I wanted to share with you to say what is important. Where are their interests? Are they positively or are they negatively a stakeholder that could really impact it in a good way? Or maybe I need to work closely with this person because they could be a detriment to the project. What are their expectations? Things to that nature. And you could share this across your project team so at least everybody understand the personalities, the personas of who you're serving in your project. So when you look at the project charter, okay, I have a nice comparison here, team, of how that relates to a statement of work. What is a statement of work? It's a set of agreed upon things that need to be done. It's almost like a project contract. And maybe you want to do a project leveraging a third party, somebody outside of either your company or the client you're serving's company, okay? And it addresses why are we here? What are we trying to accomplish? What is in scope? What is not in scope? So when you look at the compare and contrast of project charter versus, say, the statement of work, the charter simply says the who, the why, the what, the where, etc. of the project, whereas the statement of work says, what are the deliverables? What are we going to do? What are we not going to do? And what defines a job well done, meaning the criteria for acceptance, as an example. So when you look at the statement of work, it's that detailed overview, what the project entails. And it provides you, the project manager, with some structure on which the plan can subsequently be built. What you want to avoid to ensure everybody, your project team, the client, the customers that you're serving, maybe the third party, et cetera, everybody is on the same page to sooner than later minimize potential confusion. And there's different type of categories of a statement of work. One is the detail, the design, how you want the work to be specifically done. Another one is, say, the level of effort, or maybe it's on time and material, so many units, things of that nature. But more often than not, team, it's based on performance-based, meaning project managers typically prefer this because it focuses obviously on the project, it defines the resources and the quality of what is being expected, but it does not explain specifically how the work is to be done, but it allows the team, maybe the third party, the autonomy to say, this is how we've done it, we are experts in this, et cetera, So that's the confidence in how they're going to do what you want them to do. So, what makes up a statement of work? I put this here for you, team. Again, it's a high level, talks about the different entities, the different elements that could be a nice guide for you when putting together a statement of work for your project. So let's take a pause here, and I periodically through each of my courses, I like to leverage the group chat because obviously details of scope. So this is that middle area we're going to drill down into defining scope, the scope statement, things of that nature that eventually will lead, say, to the work breakdown structure. Okay. The importance of managing scope. Simply put, if poorly defined, or it has a moving boundary, like a moving target, you're setting yourself up and the project for failure. Well-defined, needs to be communicated, and stay on top, that eye in the sky, as I talked about earlier, managing, controlling, things of that nature. And it helps to prevent this thing called scope creep, and I'll talk about that shortly. So a practical consideration here, team, I wanted to share with you is the acronym SMART. When you're scoping out, scope for a project, the specifics. Can they be measured? Can they be achieved through subject matter experts, as someone said earlier? The relevancy, what is necessary versus, say, nice to have as part of the satisfaction, the quality, and obviously time to ensure that focus to achieve the desired result, hopefully on time. This is an example I like to use in some of my classes when you look at gathering requirements. So about 20 some years ago, this is an example of not fully understanding project requirements. And it was for this project called the Mars Climate Orbiter. Okay, it was a space probe that was to be launched by NASA here in the United States to look at climate, atmosphere, surface changes on Mars. What's interesting, team, the navigation team, okay, used the metric system, millimeters, meters, in its calculations, while Lockheed Martin, the other contractor, okay, utilized the English system, inches, feet, pounds, things of that nature. And the engineers did not take into consideration the conversion, okay, of, say, units of pounds, seconds, Newton seconds, things of that nature. Well, needless to say, this breakdown and understanding the requirements, simply put, they called it was lost in translation. $125 million project down the drain because the project requirements were not crisply understood, because in an effort like this, it requires many entities coming together to create this orbiter. Simple example, very, very powerful to understand, team. So, when you look at a scope statement, what I want to share here, team, is that a framework. What is the framework? What are the elements, say, of a scope statement? In this particular case, let's say, for example, we're going to build a deck. When do we want to start? When are we going to end? How high? How wide? How long? Etc., etc. What material? Who's going to do it? How much do we have to budget? Just to name a few in terms of the work description. And then the practical considerations for any project. What is the end state? What features is it to have? Why do we want it to begin with? What are the physical characteristics, the limitations? What is the availability? You know, around the world, I could tell you, team, here in the United States, we have this thing called supply chain constraints. Many types of material, there is a huge, long waiting list to get pieces and parts. And then what are we going to have? What type of furniture? Is it going to be gas, say, for a grill, the lighting, etc., etc.? So let me show you an example. This is an example, team, of what's called a simple descriptive scope statement. And in this example, building a deck, it's going to be at 123 Main Street, what we want to do with the deck, what it's going to be comprised of, material, its size, where it's going to be located. We're going to have, say, a third party maybe build it. It's going to take, say, 2 weeks, and it's going to cost, say, in this case, $1,900 as an example. But this is a simple descriptive example of a scope statement. You could also have what I would call a more formal type of scope statement. Who is the sponsor? The dates, okay? Who's the project manager? A description, a high level. What deliverables, if any, that are going to be comprised. What's going to define acceptance, etc., etc. So these are just two simple examples of scope statements. So let me ask team another group chat question. What would be an example of scope uncertainty in building a deck? In the group chat window, what would be uncertainty in building a deck? You're ready to begin, but what potential uncertainty, what potential risk might lie there? I want to get you to think using, say, a simple example of a deck, and that type of methodology can be applied in more complex projects that I'm sure you're either currently or soon will be involved in. So in the group chat, what would be an example of uncertainty in building a deck, say, on your home? Anybody? Just a few words. City, county permits. I love that. I like your thinking. Health of the worker, the target audience. Is it family? Is it, you want to have, get-togethers, say, with the neighbors to talk about things in the neighborhood? Unknown ground issues. Yeah. Is there a tree in the way? Things of that nature. Dependencies, worker calling in sick. Yeah, these are just simple, but yet such important things to think about of what is known versus unknown, okay? And here's an example, team. Some information may not even be available when you're writing a scope statement. These uncertainties are what's called risk. You want to define them, though, as best as possible up front. As DR says, accessibility, working equipment. Are we going to do it by hand with a saw and a hammer and a nail and a screwdriver? Are we going to have power equipment? So practical considerations, it's, are we going to accept? Are we going to avoid? Are we going to transfer? Or can we mitigate or alter? These are just some things to think about in this particular case, building a deck, okay? So I want to get everybody to think, especially up front, early in a project cycle. And then the other thing I touched upon earlier are what I call the three quote-unquote creeps. Scope creep, hope creep, effort creep. And many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the traditional scope creep. It could complicate the project. It may expand it. It may alter the dates. It may alter the budget. It may need more people, etc., etc. Or it may be a hindrance to the original scope. So what you want from a practical consideration, have as much detail, have a realistic plan, but also include, team, what I call some contingencies. Maybe a little contingency on the schedule. Maybe a little contingency on the budget. Things to that nature. Similar but different is hope creep, where maybe the project is falling behind. Team members are starting to be hiding. They don't want you, the project manager, finding them. Well, this is a problem. You want to make sure you understand and monitor everybody's progress. Hold them responsible. Hold them accountable. And then the other dimension of creep is what I call effort creep, where somebody is putting so much time, so much effort, but nothing's getting done. Classic example, many of you, I'm sure, over the years seen, the old hamster. You put it on a spinning wheel, and that hamster is working and working and working. That wheel is spinning and spinning and spinning, but the wheel's going nowhere fast. Team, the point here, you want to make sure you don't confuse activities with achieving results. Results realized. Okay? The other key thing about collecting requirements, I touched upon that Mars orbiter. This is a simple but very powerful concept where you, the project manager, and your team are sitting around, say, with the customer, the various stakeholders, maybe the users, and they explain in the top left what they, how they explained it. What maybe you, the project leader, understood it to be, or what the analyst designed it, or the programmer wrote it, etc., etc. And if you look then on the bottom right, what the customer really wanted. Simple, cartoonish, but very, very important. As you're collecting requirements, make sure they are relevant, and important towards achieving the desired outcome, the value of what the customer wants from your project. Now, what are ways to collect and validate? Obviously, you want to meet with the stakeholders. Be open to ideas, maybe the subject matter experts that are very familiar with what the project is. Okay? You want to make sure that you get a cross-section representation, say a business development manager or a business analyst. Maybe it's to hold a focus group, a workshop of some sort. So practical considerations, simply put, when you're looking at defining the requirements of a scope, are they real? Are they perceived? Are they pipe dream in somebody's imagination? Or can they be a distractor? You need to be aware of that. Who's providing the requirements? How well defined are they? And the other key thing, how are they most critical? And in what priority? What are the must-haves? What are the nice-to-haves, as an example? So, team, this is the first of two exercises. And this is a fun exercise I wanted to share with you. And it's to